Hey all, Tony Bing here. Hello and welcome back to another video for Marvel Strike Force. Now, with the recent news coming from the creative director that the Defenders team will be getting a buff, I figured for this video it would be a bit of fun to look over the existing characters and in what way they could actually be buffed and improved and what synergies you could get with this team, because it's a very iconic team and at the moment they really do fall short of working together as a unit, and each of the individual characters are really quite underwhelming as well, some more than others. I'm looking at you, Danny Rand, the immortal Iron Fist. So we've got 4 characters anyway, we know who they are. It's Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones and Danny Rand, the immortal Iron Fist. Now I'll start off here by looking at the easiest one. This would be Jessica Jones. The reason she's the easiest one is she's actually in a decent spot and she wouldn't really need that many changes to her. Jessica then is the controller of the group and she's all about cleansing debuffs and also cleansing positive buffs from characters and giving energy to the team. Now we'll quickly run over her kit and then what I'll do is I'll bring up an edited version with the changes I believe would make her a lot better. Now you've got her basic first, it's called Jawbreaker. You're doing your primary target damage, you have the chance for a bonus attack on that and you've got the chance to gain 1 ability energy on each attack, so that is pretty nice there. We've then got Shake It Off. You clear all negative effects from self and all allies and you generate 1 ability energy to 4 random allies. One of the issues with this is that RNG involved in it, and we can look at recent changes to characters such as Thanos and Star-Lord and see how this can be addressed. Next up we have her ultimate, and this is called Rejection. So you attack a single target for 300% damage and you clear all positive effects. Now this is pretty nice, but when we've got characters like Vision that can clear 2 positive effects from an entire team, it does seem that our ultimate could do with being ramped up a little bit. Finally we have our passive, which is called Denial. So with this, to the Defenders team she would be granting them an additional 35% resistance, so that's actually really pretty nice there, to be honest, and there's not much, if anything, I would change with that. Now with all that in mind, let's have a look and see how I would change our kit to improve her. So we have just 2 skills here I feel could be improved, put on a much better place. The first one is the special Shake It Off. So with this you will retain the clear all negative effects from self and all allies, because this is pretty great. But the change with this is we would take the RNG out. Well, in the same way the changes to Star-Lord made him a lot more reliable in regards to who he can feed energy to. So with this you would actually grant the 4 ability energy to random adjacent allies, and the way this would work would be the same as Star-Lord, and then it could give 1 to one ally, 3 to the other, it could be 2 and 2, or it could end up giving all 4 to a particular ally. So there's still an element of randomness to it, but at least you are in control of who's actually getting the energy. Now next up we've got the ultimate, which is Rejection. So with this you would still attack the primary target for 300% damage and clear all positive effects. The change to this, and you could add in a nice visual when she smashes down as well, would be it also does 200% damage to adjacent targets, and then it has a 50% chance to clear all positive effects from those targets that it hits as well. So with that it's adding a bit of AoE cleanse to her and it's taking some RNG out of her kit, and she's still got the additional resistance which she's offering, and she's still got the pretty useful basic as well. So that I feel would make her much better. Now next up let's have a look at Daredevil. Daredevil is another character that his performance really comes down to RNG in regards to his skills, and that's due to the low multipliers he has for his skills to actually be either single target or chain. So you've got his basic first, Strike Without Fear. Now when this does chain it does a whopping amount of damage, but there is only a 1 in 2 chance at the moment for that to happen, and if it's a hand ally you only get an additional 10% chance, which is pretty poor there. You've then got Throw Baton. This skill only has a 30% chance to chain to 2 targets. It really needs to be massively up, this one, so it looks more impressive, and it is more impressive. You've then got Brawl. This one's pretty nice, to be honest. It's not a massive amount. If anything I would change with this, you've hitting the primary target for 400% damage and you've got a pretty respectable 60% chance to chain up to 6 additional targets. They are dealing 300% damage. Finally you have the passive. This could definitely see some improvements. It's got 10% dodge chance, 10% damage, which is pretty nice. The Defender's synergy with this is that allies gain a 5% bonus to their speed. Now if you think of Star-Lord, he gets, I think it's something like 20% to speed and 30% to damage, so this passive could really do with being bumped up a fair amount. Now with all that in mind, let's check out and see what changes I would make to him. For Daredevil then, I would say that you have to make some quite substantial changes to 3 of his skills to really bump him up. Now the first one would be his basic strike without fear. So what I would change this to is you attack the primary target for 270% damage, slightly up in the chance for a bonus attack, that's going from 50 to 70%, and it still does the 210% damage. The main change of this is that if the target is hand, it gives you a 100% chance for a bonus attack, so that makes a lot more sense. The additional 10% just simply isn't enough. Now next skill gets a huge overhaul. This is throw baton. So with this you attack the primary target for 180%, that part's not changed. However, this would also include stealth targets. The reason being that Daredevil's blind, so why should it make any difference if enemies are actually stealth? He uses his radar senses to hit them, so that would work very well with the fact he's going up against hand, and a large part of their kit with Nobu, Hand Sentry and also Elektra is based around the stealth, so Daredevil can work his way through that there. Now this would actually work on a rebound as well, so it wouldn't be a chain, it would be similar to Deadpool, and let's say there was only 2 enemies left, you would throw this and it could actually bounce between them up to 4 times before coming back to yourself there, and the bounce would do 120% damage. I brought that down a little bit because with the rebound chain it did seem slightly on the higher side. You would still gain the 2 counter with this, and what I would change is that previously with this skill it's dodge breaks this chain, but I would actually change this to counter attack breaks this chain, because if it had dodge, dodge is the same as an evade, and it would mean that when Hand Sentry fires up his stealth on all characters, then you couldn't actually use this skill, and this skill in a way is used to nullify Hand Sentry there. Now when we look at the ultimate, wouldn't actually change anything on this. I would say if there are changes to his kit, this would still be strong enough. When we get to the passive and Hand Senses, now what I would give him, because his survivability is really low, I would give him a bit more dodge chance than the 10% he gets. I would bump this up to 25% dodge chance, and this of course is when the passive is maxed out at level 5, so it costs you a lot of abilities to get to that point. And then I would also add in similar buffs to what Star-Lord offers. Not as strong, because Star-Lord is a marquee character and Daredevil's a lot easier to farm. So with this I would have it so Defender's allies gain 15% speed and Defender's allies also gain 15% damage there. That seems like a nice balance overall. So next up, let's have a look at Luke Cage. When we look at Luke Cage then, this is a character that initially when I started out this video I thought we would have to make some quite sweeping changes to make him a lot more competitive and really add value to the team, but thinking about it I've hopefully come up with a nice little suggestion which would add an element of flavour to his kit and would also make him a lot more powerful as well without having to change too much of how he works. Now let's quickly run over how he works at the moment anyway. So you have his basic beat up. With this you're doing your single target damage and you have a 30% chance for a hero ally to assist. That's pretty nice. We could add in some Defender's flavour to the assist as well. You've then got Bring It On. This has got 2 turns of taunt and regenerate for 2 turns, and you clear all negative effects. This is really strong, but what pulls Luke Cage down a little bit is the fact that most tanks have their taunt and defense in the same skill, and because Cage doesn't actually have this, if you use it to taunt at the start of a match, you'll be taking more damage because he doesn't have the defense up yet. Now when we look at the ultimate, it's unbreakable, so you gain defense up on self for 2 turns, apply defense up on all allies, gain death proof on self, and you generate 1 to 3 ability energy for random allies. So the way it works is you want to cast this first to get the defense up for 2 turns, and on that second turn you'll still have the defense up when you then taunt. That's the setup you should be using. When we look at the ability energy, we could take some of the randomness out that because that has been happening with characters. And then finally we have the passive, which is actually not bad. It's Power Man. You gain 5% max health per defender ally, you gain 5% armor, and then it's 15% of max health as well. There it just says 15, it's a tooltip error, but it's not 15 max health you get, it is 15% there. Now that's a pretty nice passive, but I would actually drop something into it which would hopefully make him a bit more fun to play and would make up for the fact that he's special and ultimate and almost competing against each other. So let's check out the changes I would make there. So we have quite a few changes to Cage, but they're actually all small changes, but if you add them all in it would hopefully make a big difference and add a nice amount of flavour to his kit. So firstly you've got that basic. Now we would retain just the primary target damage, the chance for a hero ally assist, but it would also be nice if you had the 50% chance for an assist from a defender's ally, so it's encouraging you to run that setup. When we look at Bring It On as special, now previously this had 2 turns at taunt. I'd actually moved this down to 1 turn, but there is a reason for that and I'll cover that in just a moment. You would still retain the 2 turns of regenerate and also clearing all negative effects from self. When we look at the ultimate, the only thing I would really change about this, because it's a pretty nice skill, is that rather than gaining 2 turns of defense up on him, I would change it to 2 turns of deflect. It makes more sense. You look at the actual tooltip and he's deflecting bullets that are being shot at him there. Now when we look at the passive, this is where it ties in with the special that we nerfed in a way. So this is called Power Man. So you'll gain the 5% max health per defender's ally, that's a nice synergy there. You gain the 15% max health, and with this, when an ally drops below 50% health, you gain taunt. If that ally is a defender, you also gain deflect as well, because one thing that happened quite a lot when I was watching the defenders was that Luke Cage would constantly be jumping in front of Iron Fist and deflecting bullets and actually protecting them there, so I figured that would be a nice way of adding in that flavour, but it also means his special and his ultimate aren't really competing against each other as much with that. So that's a setup I think could be quite interesting for Luke Cage. So that leaves us with arguably the worst character out of the defenders to cover Iron Fist, but he's one that I think you could really make some very interesting changes to. So let's check out his existing kit. Iron Fist then is a bit of an odd character. I can see what they've tried to do with him with the channeling of the chi and the healing, but it all just doesn't gel together that well. Now we'll quickly run over what he's got his kit in the moment and then I'll show off how I believe he could be improved. So first off, his basic is martial arts. You're doing primary target damage and you've got a 1 in 2 chance to chain up to 3 adjacent targets for 200% damage. It's not too bad, but one thing he does suffer from is actually low stats, so those could be bumped up. I'm not going to get into exact numbers on how much they could be bumped up by, other than they could do with seeing a bit of a jump. You then have Inner Peace. This is a special. With this you heal self for 7000 health and 10% of max health and clear all negative effects. It's really not a great skill, it's not much of a heal that's going on there, and you're losing an offensive move for this, so that's one of the biggest downsides. You then have the Iron Fist. Now this is nice. You attack the primary target for 600% damage. The thing that really pulls this down, but I can again slightly understand why they've done it from a flavour perspective, but you have a 60% chance to gain offence down for 1 turn, so what he has to do is channel his chi back up again, which does make sense for Iron Fist. However, when we do get to how I would change the skills, I believe I've got a better way of retaining that element of his kit but charging the chi, but without it actually being a penalty to him. Now finally we've got the passive. Again, this isn't great at all. It's Son of Kun Lun. So on turn, 20% chance to heal self for 15% of max health and defender allies for 15% of this character's max health. So there's a lot of RNG in that, as we've seen with some of the previous heroes. Now with that covered, let's check out and see what changes we would make to him. So with Iron Fist then, the whole idea behind the changes that I believe can work really well with him was built around the chi flavour, keeping that within his kit, but as mentioned, rather than having it be a penalty to him, it can only ever be a bonus to him. So we have a slight change on his basic. So with this you still attack the primary target for 250% damage, but what happens when you use this skill is you will gain 1 chi. The chance to chain is the same, and so is the damage as well. So it is slightly underwhelming, the skill, but the reason we're not pulling it up is because the other skills will be pulled up through the use of gaining chi. So again, just to confirm, when you use the basic on its own, you'll gain 1 stack of chi. It's essentially the same is charged the likes of Cable, Wasp and Black Panther have. Now when we look at his special inner piece, so it's still doing what it done before, and you can use it on the first turn if you want. If you use it on the first turn, you heal self for 7,000 health and 10% of max health, clearing all negative effects from self. Now if you were to actually use his basic instead and get that 1 stack of chi and then use this, you would gain evade and counter, and then you would lose chi and have to build it up again. If you decide to use the basic twice and get 2 stacks of chi, what will happen is this heal will actually heal adjacent allies and you will gain the evade and counter as well, so it's stacking up. Finally, if you were to use your basic 3 times, you'll get the 3 stacks of chi, and with this you'll heal all allies and then you'll gain evade and gain counter as well. So with this, there's a bit of a trade-off. Do you hold off using your other skills and simply use the basic to build your chi, or do you use your special and ultimate earlier on? Now when we look at the ultimate, this works the same way, so it's still called Iron Fist. With this you attack the primary target for 300% damage. That's come down from 600, but the reason for that is it can offer a lot more when we build it up with chi. So with this, for 1 stack of chi, adjacent targets receive 150% damage and then you lose chi. So the way this would work is you would see him powering up his fist. When he actually goes up his chi levels, his fist would get a larger, more prominent glow on it, and when you attack, the actual animation would change, so you've got an AoE aftershock of sorts. That would increase the visuals as you actually go up for this skill. When you've got 2 stacks of chi, all targets would receive 200% damage, and then of course you'll lose chi. And then finally, if you stack this up to 3, all targets receive 250% damage, and you would slow them down as well there, because that's something that's actually missing from the Defender's kit. They don't have any kind of slow, they also don't have speed up, but with the changes to Daredevil and his passive, that would offer you some element of speed up into the kit to help out. When it comes to the passive, as much as I'm not a fan of it, I've not changed it too much because I feel the changes on his special and ultimate are quite strong and I wouldn't want to make him too overpowered. So with this, the changes I would make is that you gain an additional 25% damage that could be useful because his base damage is low, and also you would get 15% dodge chance there. I feel he should have some element of dodge in his kit because he's a martial arts expert and he will be dodging attacks from enemies. Other than that, it works the same. You've still got the 20% chance for heal self and the 15% of max health, and then finally the Defender's allies getting 15% of max health. Now with that passive, I'm not actually 100% happy with what I've come up with, but I'm struggling to think of anything else. So if anyone has got any ideas, let me know in the comments below. If you get any ideas about the rest of the kit on the other characters, well, do let me know how you would like to see them actually working. Feel free to give me feedback on the suggestions I've come up with today, and as always, thanks for tuning in. I hope this was an interesting video, and I'll see you all again soon.